In the year 657 BCE, Cypselus, the military commander of Corinth, carried out a coup and overthrew the aristocratic government.
But how did Cypselus manage to carry out the coup?
We will answer this question in this video, but first a summary of the previous episodes. In 747 BCE, the Bacchiadae deposed the last king of Corinth and rose to power. Under the rule of the Bacchiadae, and thanks to Corinth's strategic location, the city flourished due to the trade passing through it, the abundance of craftsmen, and the colonies, chief among them Corcyra and Syracuse. The economic boom enriches the city, and it grows due to the increased demand for labor. In 648 BCE, the Messenian revolt broke out when the non-Dorian inhabitants of the Peloponnese rebelled against both Sparta in the south and Elis in the north. And now, let's go back to the middle of the 7th century BCE. In the middle of the 7th century BCE, Corinthian society was very different compared to the period when the Bacchiadae rose to power. The change was manifested in three aspects: the economic structure, the mode of warfare, and ethnic tension. Let's start with the economic change. The economic prosperity experienced by Corinth enriched merchants and craftsmen, effectively creating a significant economic middle class that was not part of the government. The newly wealthy did not like the tax burden imposed by the Bacchiadae and demanded political change. The nature of warfare also changed in the 100 years since the rise of the Bacchiadae. While in the middle of the 8th century, fighting was personal, with one aristocrat fighting another aristocrat. By the middle of the 7th century, hoplite warfare began to develop, where a group of people in a tight formation fought together. The hoplites were equipped with armor, shield, and spear, and at that time such equipment was expensive, so only those with means could be soldiers. Thus, the economic middle class also became a military factor that, beyond participating in wars, could also militarily confront the aristocrats. The rise in ethnic tension in the Peloponnese Peninsula could be seen in the Messenian revolt in Dorian Sparta and in the takeover of Olympia by Pisa, ousting the Dorian Elis from control of the games. The Bacchiadae exacerbated the problem in Corinth by prohibiting marriage with anyone outside their family, intensifying the ethnic tension in Corinth.
So the Bacchiad rule no longer suited the Corinthian society that had changed.
Cypselus's mother was from the Bacchiad family, but she was lame and couldn't find a match among the aristocrats, so she married a man who wasn't part of the Bacchiad family. Cypselus grew up outside of Corinth in a small village in Argolis, and when he returned to the city, the Bacchiads saw him as a family member, but he was perceived by the people as an outsider and was very popular among the city's residents. The Bacchiads' troubles began in 668 when Phidon rose to power in Argos and started pressuring Corinth as he tried to expand northward. However, the most significant event was in 664 when the colony of Corcyra rebelled against Corinth and won. The poor management of the wars increased the dissatisfaction of Corinth's residents with the Bacchiad leadership, and the tension between the aristocratic government and the people grew. Change came in 657 when Cypselus was appointed as the military commander of Corinth. Cypselus took advantage of the people's resentment and, with the help of the army under his command and likely with the aid of mercenaries, managed to carry out a coup and overthrow the Bacchiads. Cypselus and his army killed many of the Bacchiads, and the survivors fled the city to various cities under Dorian rule such as Sparta and Elis. Cypselus confiscated the Bacchiads' lands and distributed them to the city's poor residents, making him even more popular.
So the Bacchiad rule no longer suited the changed Corinthian society, and Cypselus exploited his position and popularity to carry out a coup.
Cypselus, as mentioned, was very popular among the people, and despite seizing control of the city by force, he didn't need bodyguards and could walk freely among the city's residents. He built the Temple of Apollo, hooray! And the Temple of Poseidon near the Corinth Canal. Hooray! He was also the first to build a treasury room in Delphi, where he offered gifts to the oracle. Hooray! Cypselus's foreign policy was also peace-seeking and based on agreements rather than wars. Corinthian pottery and other goods flooded Sicily and Italy. Cypselus also established new colonies in the Ambracian Gulf, which served as a replacement for the loss of Corcyra on the route to Italy, and as a foothold for trade with what is now northwestern Greece.
So the backyard rule no longer suited the changed Corinthian society, and Cypselus exploited his position and popularity to carry out a coup. Through peaceful means, he enriched and advanced Corinth.
In 627, Cypselus died, and his son Periander inherited him, becoming the tyrant of Corinth. However, unlike his father, Periander based his rule on fear and violence. He surrounded himself with 300 armed bodyguards, murdered the remaining Bacchiadae in Corinth, and even killed his wife. He also imposed heavy taxes on the Corinthians, and in one instance even looted the jewelry of many women. Beyond his harsh rule, Periander was a poet and patron of the arts, bringing many artists to the city from across Greece. He also initiated large and complex projects for the benefit of the city's residents, establishing the first artificial harbour in Lycaon. Hooray! Periander also wanted to dig the Corinth Canal, but the technology of his time was not advanced enough for such a complex project, and Periander had to settle for the track along the isthmus that helped transport goods and even small ships, thus increasing the volume of trade between the eastern and western Mediterranean. Periander expanded Corinth's influence by recapturing Corcyra and Epidamnos, thus extending to the Balkans, and the silver mines there enriched the city's treasury, allowing Periander to start minting coins. Periander also expanded Corinth's activities to the east. He established a colony in Pallene in Chalcidice and formed an alliance with the tyrant of Miletus, who helped him expand trade with Lydia and Egypt. In 585, Periander died, and his nephew inherited him. But after 2 years, the aristocrats carried out a counter-coup with the support of Corinth's residents who were tired of Periander's harsh rule, and with the help of many cities throughout Greece, led by Sparta. The aristocrats established a government headed by a council of 80 nobles, a rule that was more tolerant than both the Bacchiadae and Periander.
So the backyard rule no longer suited the changed Corinthian society, and Cypselus exploited his position and popularity to carry out a coup. Through peaceful means, he enriched and advanced Corinth. However, his son, Periander, was a cruel tyrant, and despite bringing Corinth to tremendous achievements, after his death, the aristocracy returned to power.
I see. The backyard rule was rigid, which is why Cypselus managed to carry out a coup. However, his son was an even harsher ruler than the Bacchiadae, and that's why the oligarchy succeeded in returning to power.
Indeed, the wheel of power revolved completely, and in the end, the aristocratic rule returned. However, this was a much more inclusive and open government than the rule of the Bacchiadae. See you in the next video.